I brought this timing cube, and I use it because I'm working remotely, mostly with American teams. So in the morning, I'm on my own. I don't have meetings, but I have to get a lot of work done. And so then I'm starting with 25 minutes. And after 25 minutes, I take 5-minute break. And I do it for 3 times. And then I take a 15-minute break. It's called the Pomodoro technique. And it helps to get started and to get focused and to only focus on one thing at a time. So my mother is a psychologist and my father is a theater and television director. So I think I was always just very interested in people and in humans and definitely in big questions of life. And so I really wanted to become a theater writer and maker. And so then I read that a lot of theater makers actually had studied philosophy, or one of my famous theater reviewers had studied philosophy. And I thought that's probably the place where I'll gain the most human experience. So let me do that for 4 years at the university, and then afterwards I can become a theater writer. But then life took a different turn, and I continued to do a PhD. When I chose to study philosophy, it didn't even come up in my mind that it would be hard to find a job after. When I was starting to get worried was during my PhD as to, okay, what is it that I'm going to do after? Because during my PhD, I realized I do not want to do a postdoc. I do not want to become a professor. So then what is it that I will do with this great philosophical knowledge? So that's when I was starting to think, okay, what will it be that I will be doing? I did start working part-time as a Dutch language teacher. I was teaching languages to adults. So that was an easy crowd, a very eager crowd, and I found that very meaningful. But then I actually did have a really bad experience, which was very meaningful. I thought, okay, if I want to have a full-time job, I maybe will need to teach children. So I started that, and it was terrible. They were not interested in learning Dutch at all. They had zero motivation. Why would they learn Dutch? They would probably never know it as well enough to really use it. So I resigned, and then I think I had to really rethink, okay, now maybe I really should think about what I will do after my PhD properly, because this is not going to be it. By going to other countries and working together with people made me realize that's really what I need now in the future of my life. During my PhD, I could realize it's like I do need something very challenging. That's when I thrive. I can be very self-driven, so that's what I can use in my job. I do like exploring very new things, so that's what I will continue to need. And I do need to work with self-driven and intelligent people, because that's where I really thrive. So these are things that I did realize during the PhD by sometimes not having them and sometimes having them, and then realizing, okay, that's where I really thrive. And so I was also looking ahead as to what can I do after. It was very clear for me that it would not be a postdoc, so that I didn't even apply to any postdoc. And the reason was I didn't want to think about anything. So they told me if you're going to do a postdoc, it will need to be about the same subject, because that's where you've shown your expertise. And that I didn't want to. I wanted my world to be bigger than the subject that I had been studying for 5 years. So I knew it was going to be outside of the academic world. And one day I didn't apply to a strategy consultant myself, but I got an invitation from the company I work now for, McKinsey Company. They had a PhD day. And I had so much fun during that day. And I started seeing all these parallels between strategy consulting and philosophy. One thing that we had to do in philosophy as well was, of course, you have this big problem, you're going to solve it you're going to break it into little parts and then try to address that one. And you had to be very much thinking about what is following from each other. Is something really a consequence of something else? And it was exactly the same in strategic consulting. The only difference was that you did it in teams. They hire around 1/5 of their consultants or from a different field. And they do it because they have found actually via research that if you want to address a problem, any problem or a business problem, it's better to have different perspectives. You can imagine if you all have commercial engineers that all have been at the same business school, they will attack a problem from the same side, but they may have less eye for a hidden detail, like for instance the people side of things. So then what happened is I got the offer for the European Commission to do a traineeship, which was limited in time, like 6 months or so. And I got 2 of the strategy consulting offers, of which I accepted one. But the strategy consulting firm was so kind to let me do the traineeship, even though I had accepted their offer, which I thought was really great because this way I could I had experienced academia, and now I had the opportunity to experience what it is to serve a public institution. And then afterwards I had the opportunity to experience what it is to work in business. I went from philosophy to business. So I think you are the one that has to make the link and say, why does my experience in philosophy or in my PhD now actually, how can that actually contribute to the job that I'm going to do? And also, why is it that I want to move away? So that they know for sure that you're making a conscious choice. So I would say if you have done a PhD and you want to apply to business, like don't wait too long. Like don't, if that's the way you want to go for it right then, because then it's clear kind of you want to make a switch from academia to something else, it's logical. But if you drag on into academia, for instance, even though you don't really like it, and then want to make a switch, the companies may be less open to accepting you. The qualities that I brought as a PhD student were a very strong problem analysis skills, right? The capability of synthesis, the perseverance of not giving up if maybe the first answer didn't seem to be the right one, the ability to look at many different perspectives and to not be taken aback if one expert seems to say something else than another expert, but then to explore what is kind of how can this come together? What is maybe a common truth that we can draw from that? Without a PhD, I would not have been accepted in strategy consulting. I would have not, without this title, I would have not gotten it. They would, if I had just a master in philosophy, they would not have thought I was special enough to have somebody out of business to join them. It is because of the PhD experience that both I kind of developed skills that I can use now, but also that my application letter was interesting enough. So I definitely think like even if you after your PhD, if you kind of know I want to do this PhD, I want to do this research now, but I don't want to stay in academia forever, I think that's absolutely valuable, and that is clearly also valued by many employers. So it's not holding you back completing that PhD first to then do something else. I think if you finish a PhD and you want to apply for strategy consulting or any kind of job, I think it's important to interview people that work in the company. So usually, in my case, it was kind of offered. So they had this buddy system. They had people that were not going to interview you, but that were working at the company and that you could ask any questions. But regardless, I think it only shows your own interest if you ask the HR department before you really interview, if it's possible to interview people at the company, then nothing can go wrong. If you've have asked your questions and if you've done your preparation, if you get it, great, right? You have a great offer. And if you didn't get it, it was meant to not be gotten, right? Because you have actually given it your all. I had a senior partner telling me, the moments that you think you want to give up, just say, okay, whatever I do, I should do it for a year. Because it's only like really in the term of a full year or full 12 months that you kind of explore everything and see the ups and the downs. So I think, once you've chosen to dive into something, don't give up at the first moments, but give it a year and see, and ask yourself in another year if this is really what you want to continue doing.